Hey there, this is a review for our Cast Crusades campaign. This was session number 67. I ended up with 4 players in this session. We had the characters Barry, Lork, Sprawl, and Renee. We picked up where we left off. They're just outside the Dragon Tomb. There's a little bit of a debate on what to do with the Dragon Claw key. Barry's in favor of keeping it. So they basically come to the agreement if Zalexis, the Lamia Queen, doesn't ask for it back, they're not going to offer it up. Before they leave, Lort collects some trophies from the undead dragon that they killed, and saves those for later. And they head out. They end up stopping back at the small dwarven mine that they found, where Renee found the spoon and the cookbook to the Duzeth, and they rest there for the night. They're pretty beat up, so they do a lot of healing, and which is they really need. And there was some good role play here with amongst the characters, and Bot Hill, the NPC. She kind of has developed a thing for Sprawl, and much to Barry's frustration, because he was trying to make some moves in that general direction, but she was more interested and seems to be more interested in Sprawl, despite all Barry's self-perceived heroic efforts. They spend the night there. There's no encounters. I rolled for random encounters, didn't come up with any. So the next day they strike off, and in a couple days they reach, they return to Zalexis, the Lamia Queen's lair. They bypass the harpies that guard the lower part of it, the pass, and they this time, when they went there before, they had used pitch and pine pitch and stuff to plug up their ears, all except for Barry, to block out the siren call of the harpies. Well, after they'd done that, it was discovered that Renee actually had candles in his kit. They could have used wax, which would have been way easier to clean out and not as awful. So there's a little bit of an issue, because he uses that to seal some of the food pots that he carries for his foodstuffs that he's always producing. But there's a little thing back and forth between him and Lork, before Lork's basically like, give me the candle. So, because he didn't want to do that again. So it was just funny the way they went about it at the table. They return to the lair. Zalexis is very happy to see them. The mongrel folk are very curious about them. And then above in this hall, up on these ledges, are a bunch of Lamia, and the Lamia are just very focused on the party, and the players are very wary of that. The Lamias, it's quite clear that they're there to guard the queen, and that is their only purpose. They don't take part in any sort of revelry or anything like that. But Zalexis, she greets the party, Barry in particular, who gives her the crown and places it on her head, and true to her word, she does give them hairs and invites them to partake in wine, which they're very hesitant to do. They're afraid that she might have poisoned it, or they're waiting to be betrayed. But eventually, I think not all the characters did, but most of them did drink the wine, and it was fine. They celebrate a little bit, kind of awkwardly, and then Zalexis and Barry have a kind of they kind of go back and forth about. Barry's laying it on pretty thick about wanting to return here someday to visit, and she invites him back. Barry has no intention of ever returning to this place, and I think he's probably thankfully got out of there alive. So they leave, and now their plan is to go to the ruins of this elven kingdom and confront the Linnorm King. And they strike off in a southwest direction. Lork's leading them. He has some directions on a map that they got from Nesna the Beautiful. She marked on their map, and they head out. and he's doing his typical thing where he's ranging out ahead of the party, him and Fenris, and they he comes across any of the party members would have discovered this. It was basically a hobgoblin warband on the march, and they're headed southwest, and he's able to deduce it's towards whatever bonfire they had seen in that direction a few days ago. So it's relatively fresh, so they're a little ways behind it. And Lork also knows it's a sizable group. There's well over 100 hobgoblins. There's also a huge boar, basically the same size, if maybe not even a little bit bigger than the one that he hunted way back when out in, what was it? I think on the outskirts of Highhold. He sees that there's some other boar in there, and it's also, he can tell because he's a ranger that it's being used as a mount. So there's the Gorza, which is like a combination of an ogre and a hill giant in this party, and even a giant hill giant. So they kind of trail along, but they don't want to overtake this warband because there's a lot of them, except for Renee. Renee wants to fight them all, but wiser members of the party go with a different idea. They end up on a cliff overlooking a valley, a small valley, and they see this warband marching out into the edge of the valley, and in the center of the valley they see a band of the Ungren, and they have a big effigy which they're familiar with. They've encountered them before, and the hobgoblins and their forces are very militaristic, so they set up, you see definitive like units of them, like archers and stuff like that, and this one hobgoblin riding this giant massive boar rides out to the front, and he raises this hammer that kind of shines, which piques the party's interest, especially I think Renee's a little bit. And then before long there's a charge, and the archers lead that charge with a hail of crossbow bolts, and the Ungren are just savages, so they're not super organized. They make up what they lack in organization, they make up in ferocity. So they just kind of like charge across the field, and these two forces meet, and the party just kind of kicks back and watches this battle happen. And after a while, it's clear that the hobgoblins are too much for the Ungren, and most of the Ungren are killed. Few flee into the woods. They estimate that the hobgoblins lost no more, probably less than a quarter of their force. And the hobgoblins take their time. They go through the battlefield, finishing off any fallen enemies, and then they make pyres for their fallen dead. And then they leave, but they don't go in the same direction they came from. They head east. The party gives them some time, and they go down and get a closer look at this battle, and then move on. They enter the forest and travel a little bit further, and then they start to find like old ruins, and they remind them of the ruins that they saw around Honoriel, the elf maiden's tomb. So they know they're in the right vicinity, and Lork's up ahead a little bit, but the brush and stuff here and the moss and vines and everything is really pretty thick, so he's not too far ahead of the party because traveling is a little bit more difficult. So he's up ahead, and he starts to see movement around him, and at first he thinks it could be Linnorm, and then in fact it comes out and it's these spirits come out and they surround him, and he draws his blade, the Jotun Slayer, and when he draws his blade, the spirits kind of stop and just watch him, and then this one spirit comes out, and it is clearly the spirit of like an elven lord. And I think it was Matt mentioned, it was kind of reminiscent of the scene in the Return of the King when the army of the dead comes out and greets Aragorn and stuff. And it was kind of that way. It was what I had in my head when I described it, and it was good that they picked up on it. This elven lord greets them, and Lork in particular, and basically says that he is, or once was, the elf lord Hastion, and they've entered Tula Thadan, which is the ancient elven realm. And they know a little bit, especially Lork knows a little bit about Hastion, because Hastion used to bear the sword that Lork now carries. That was his sword. He knows the history of this sword. Like, Hastion had that sword made a long time ago to help fight a giant invasion, and he had it made by the dwarves of Helgrim Hall. The king, the first king of Helgrim Hall, built it in what's called the Star Forge, and with that blade, Hastion was able to defeat the giant, defeat the giant army. So he recognized the blade, and one of the things too is he's holding like a long spear, but at his side is a empty sword sheath. So they figure out who he is and what that's about pretty quick. They tell them that they're here to kill the Linnorm King so they can bring back Honoriel. And he tells them, Hastion tells them, and they ask if there's anything that they should know as far as like that would help them. And he tells them that within the Elven realm there's a plant that is poisonous to the Linnorm King, and if they take the sap from that, they can use that to help kill it. So he gives them some directions as to where they can find that plant, describes it. It's this luminescent plant, and they head off. And we didn't make much of this. They found that pretty easily, and I think we made a roll, and they were able to get a vial of this sap, and in turn that vial would give them 3 applications. So when they were prepping for battle, they knew, Hastion also told them that the Linnorm King made his lair around the Green Tower, and what they know about the Green Tower is it's made of emerald-like glass, and in fact, Lork's blade is made from that glass. So they head off in that direction, and they make their preparations. Sprawl's got a bunch of spells prepared. He admonishes the party like not to run off in every direction before he can get them cast. And Lork uses that vial of the sap that they just got, and he spreads it on his sword, his hand axe, and he also spreads it on Bothild's sword. Then they make their way to the Green Tower. They get near it, kind of what you're seeing here for the terrain, and down in this area here where they start out, the vines and undergrowth suddenly comes alive and entangles them, and most of them get hit with the entangle. There was a few that didn't. They were able to avoid it. Barry got hit with it. I think Lork avoided it, and maybe Sprawl. And then while they're dealing with that, these figures come out of the forest and attack them. Use these guys here. Some Games Workshop miniatures, but they're described as like, they basically look like the remains of the elves, but like they have like growths coming out of them, like, wood and moss and vines and stuff, and they attack the party. The party, they're not super tough, but with the entangle, it makes it difficult. We're about to get into like the worst series of dice rolls that I've ever had in my life as a game master. It was completely atrocious throughout pretty much the entire battle, which I'll get into. It was very frustrating for me. The players loved it, of course, but me, not so much. So I never won a single round of initiative in the entire combat. In fact, my every initiative roll was a 2, and I got beat through the entire combat. And I had 5 or more D20 rolls for attack rolls that were less than 10 in a row, like one after another. It was awful. If I'd had a hammer handy, I probably would have started smashing dice, because I'd had enough of that by the end of that fight. So but they're doing their fight, and it was good. They started working their way through. Barry kind of cleared a swath between dropping Fireball with his staff, because he couldn't cast spells normally because of the entanglement, but he could use his staff. So he drops a Fireball, cooks a bunch of them, and clears out a bunch of the vines, and then hit another one with, it was Burning Hands or some other flame spell. He cleared a good path through here. Renee ends up getting free, and he ends up all the way up here using his boots of speed, and engages these guys. These bigger ones come out with, come out and they're start shooting arrows at him. So he runs up here to engage them. He does get hit a few times. Bothill gets hit with an arrow, and what happens is they take damage, but then they have to make a dex save because vines grow out of the arrows and entangle them, which that happened to her. She was able to eventually get free because she has good strength, and her barbarian ability that they have, Primal Instinct, or I think it's something like that. It gives her a bonus towards like strength checks and stuff. So she's able to eventually get free. But as this is going on, they see other movement coming from here, and it's the Linnorm King. And I described him, basically it was this one. I used this miniature again, but this one was, in description, was twice the size of this one. So it had quite a bit of reach, because it reaches over the top of this ruin right off the bat where Barry had run to try to hide from getting shot from arrows, and just bites him and does some damage. But the battle is joined. Lork ends up closing with it. Bothild ends up closing with it. Lork actually runs in at first to help protect Barry. Barry casts Mirror Image, so that helps him defensively, and then tries to get out of the range of it. Lork in there with a melee. Fenris is stuck the entire battle. He never breaks his entanglement. Yeah, and then Sprawl's kind of doing damage control, and although at the tail end of it, towards the end of the battle, they finish off all these minions, and it's pretty much just leaving the Linnorm King, and it's a combination of spells from Barry and Sprawl that actually finally bring down the Linnorm King. And that was kind of where we ended the session. They did collect some treasure. It had a little bit of treasure that they found that they collected. And now they're making plans to return to Honorial's tomb and awaken her, and hopefully, in gratitude, get some hairs from her so they can make the brush that will allow them to put the Rod of Seven Parts together, the two pieces that they possess. So yeah, that was the session in a nutshell. There was a lot of good role play between their characters. It was pretty funny. There's a lot of stuff, probably of a personal nature for the characters. Barry is, like I said earlier, very frustrated with the whole Bothild situation. He always kind of considered himself a ladies' man, and she has basically ignored him and spurned his advances, and seems not smitten, because she's pretty rough. She's grown up in the wild country, and well, she did grow up in Highhold, but she is definitely a wild child at heart. She's from the north originally, so she just grew up there with her family. So yeah, that whole situation adds a lot of amusement and good role play, fun role play for the characters and all of us. So yeah, we finished there. This thing, so it did use its breath weapon, which has that wither ability, and he hit Sprawl with it, and I rolled randomly to see what limb was affected, and it was one of his legs. So like, he was basically crippled. He couldn't do anything but crawl. So when he launched that spell, he was literally like laying on his back, like looking up at it, and him and Barry hit it with spells. It was really kind of a really cool scene, actually, making the most of because he couldn't go anywhere, so he was in a lot of trouble. But they were able to finish it off, which was great. But yeah, so we'll be playing in a couple weeks. just a real quick, I'll do a quick drive-by of the terrain. It's a combination, it's actually a bunch of stuff here, actually, now I'm looking at it. There's some Dwarven Forge stuff, all the glowy bits you see there, that fountain, that tree. That tree didn't really have any play in the game other than just an effect. It just livened up the terrain a little bit. This is the top piece here is a Reaper miniatures terrain that I put on a MDF base, and then it's on top of some Dwarven Forge stuff. The trees, these are all 3D prints that I added just some moss to. Technically, I usually add more stuff on top of it. I just never done that. I did these ones really quick for a session a while back, and then I never went back and added more stuff to them. But I got a bunch of those. I got this one here. This is some different set of trees. I got these off Amazon. I just put them on a base, and I think I gave them some more flock because it was a little thin. And this one over here is pretty cool. I built same thing. These are 3D printed trees on an MDF base that I cut, but they're also designed to come out of that, which I never really do. I never really take them out. So I'm not entirely sure why I designed them. I think I wanted to use them so I could keep them modular, because I was mixing in some of these trees with those square bases that I put them on in my Dwarven Forge city stuff to liven up the city scapes a little bit. So I think I did that so they could just be modular. I think I have some more kicking around somewhere too that are like that, but those are really cool. I've actually been thinking about getting a few more sets of these trees, because I have a bunch that are pine trees, but it's nice to mix it up with like these big thicker trees. So we'll see. So many projects, so little time. Oh, this stuff here is some stuff I made. I cast these blocks from Hearst Art molds, and all of these here. This one Barry's on. They're based on MDF, and I painted them up. But yeah, just some cool modular pieces. I used these a long time ago, and they're nice, you know, pieces of scatter terrain. I have some other ones that I'm working on. There's a thing over there. This thing over here is was part of that set. It's just being kind of repurposed, so I just haven't finished it yet. But yeah, so that was the terrain for this session and a recap of this session. So if you have any questions about any of that, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and I appreciate you all watching. I'll catch you at the next one. Thanks.